Alright, you guys, summer is coming and in the northern hemisphere, and I wanted to talk today about one of our favorite spots up in New England, and that's Nantucket Island. It's a really popular summer destination for cruisers who are up north in New England, and yeah, we've spent quite a lot of time there. I've been there a handful of times, and our last time there, we were there for like 2 months, in and out a little bit, but spent a lot of time there within that 2 months. And my cousin worked on the island for a bit. We have some friends who work on the island, so we're pretty familiar with it. And we created not a comprehensive cruising guide, but we created a short cruising guide video for Nantucket. So we'll link that down in the description of wherever you're watching this or listening to this. And it'll have a little bit more visuals and maybe a little more polished information. But some of those visuals include some nice masking over some satellite view imagery, so you can get a really good visual representation of what we're talking about, like in Nantucket Harbor, some of the shallow spots, the mooring area, and stuff like that. So Nantucket's a pretty cool spot. It's got some rich history in whaling, and it used to be like an artist colony, and it's still home to like a lot of art galleries and stuff. But it's now like a mix of like locals who live there, not a ton, but in the summer it's like the second home to like a lot of rich and famous people, right? So it's the real estate's very expensive there, and like the stores and restaurants generally are pretty expensive. But with all that being said, we were pretty impressed with like how cruiser friendly it was. So they have free water, free fresh water at the town dock, free pump out. You can anchor there. Anchoring there is a little bit trickier than in other spots, mostly with the current and where you're allowed to anchor. Lots of moorings, but the moorings are a little bit expensive. But if you can find a place to anchor for free, then there you go. And we'll talk a little bit about that. And it's just a really cool place. There's a lot of natural area around the island, which makes it really neat. The harbor is pretty protected, both from weather, but like also in terms of like environmentally. They're very environmentally conscious up there, and they have very healthy shellfish fisheries up there, populations. So scallops, clams, oysters. And specifically scallops. They have Nantucket bay scallops, which are world famous, and there's not many places in the world where bay scallops or this species of bay scallops are still harvested in the wild. There are some places in the world I found out that they're actually like farm raised, like in China they farm raise these same species of bay scallops, but it's just really unique. They're really delicious bay scallops, and it's cool that they're abundant in the wild in Nantucket. And I don't know if you guys watch our videos or you listen to us, we like to do some fishing, and we like to do some of this like catch and eat type stuff. So we like to get our own clams and scallops and fish, obviously lobster when we're in the Bahamas, all that kind of stuff. So we find it pretty cool when like there's a really thriving fishery of something somewhere, especially in a place as popular as Nantucket. I guess I'll talk a little bit more about that, but you can't harvest bay scallops until October. Recreationally, October 1st you can harvest bay scallops, and then commercially you can start to harvest them November 1st. So there's some locals who are commercial bay scallop fishermen, I guess you would call them. They start November 1st through March. So anyway, those are some of and they have some really nice beaches on Nantucket, some good surf, and yeah, it's just a cool place. Really cool place. They have Cisco Brewery. So I'll talk a little bit about it. I'll keep referring back to this my notes page here. So it's a small island. It's roughly 20 miles south of Cape Cod. So up in New England, 20 miles south of Cape Cod. It's about 10 miles wide and 9 miles tall at like the furthest points. And it's surrounded by shoals, and Nantucket, along with like the surrounding shoals, separates Nantucket Sound from like from the Atlantic Ocean. And then there's a lot of rich history. and mostly whaling. Like, it was a big whaling island. And if you ever go to Nantucket, definitely I highly recommend going to the Whaling Museum. We're not huge museum people, but the Whaling Museum was super super cool. It's really cool to learn about how they whaled and how they used Nantucket as like a home port for whaling, and then how they how they did everything, how they sailed for the whales. They would be out for like 2 or 3 years around the world at a time and harvest a bunch of whales, and they use these little boats and harpoons, which is really interesting. So if you're on Nantucket, go to the Whaling Museum. And yeah, like I said, like, they have this rich maritime history, and you can still like get a sense of that a little bit walking around the island. There's some statues, there's like these old cobblestone streets everywhere, and then at the same time there's also like art galleries and like fancy restaurants and like fancy shops, expensive shops and stuff like that. So it's like it's a mix of this deep maritime heritage and like modern like kind of luxury, which is interesting. The restaurants are really good, by the way. There's a lot of really good restaurants. Again, pretty expensive in general, but that's Nantucket. So navigation. So you come into Nantucket through the harbor entrance on the north side of the island, and it's a long, deep, well-marked channel, and it's protected by really long rock jetties on either side, and there can be a pretty good tidal current through the harbor entrance. And in the summer, there's a ton of boat traffic. There's huge ferries that go to and from Nantucket, so you'll see the ferries a lot, and then just a ton of other boat traffic, fishing boats, sailboats, plenty of cruisers, and then even a bunch of little sailboats. They have like little sailing clubs and stuff that sometimes go out into the Sound. So you come in through that harbor entrance, and once you make your way into the harbor, there's a little bit of a turn to come into the harbor, but it's all well marked. If you just follow the markers, you'd be perfectly fine. And then basically you're like looking to the harbor. To your right is land, and then as you go further in, to your right or off your starboard side would be like the docks, and you'll see a bunch of big yachts that are moored, and the marinas and stuff. And then like pretty much right in front of you is more like the big mooring field. And then beyond the mooring field, and then also to the left off the port side, would be more anchored boats. So I guess we can talk about that. So yeah, there is dockage in Nantucket, and it's all of it, I believe, is through the Nantucket boat basin. It's pretty expensive. Like I said, they even have like a lot of yachts go there, and up to about 300 foot, and all the big yachts are moored. It's a pretty cool system. They have the anchors way out front. I think they hire a diver to set the anchors, and so they drop the anchors way out front, and they back their stern up to the dock, and their bow sticking out just with the anchors, and stern to the dock, and that's how they can fit a lot more bigger yachts there. And yeah, so there's a bunch of slips in there. 240 slips in Nantucket Boat Basin, and hourly and overnight transient slips are available for boats under 30 feet on a first come first served basis at the town pier. So as you're coming into the harbor, Nantucket Boat Basin's over on the right, and just beyond that, if you keep going on the right, you'll see the town pier, and it's got like, I guess you would call it maybe a big T-head, like a big face dock at the very end of the town pier, and then inside of that is a bunch of slips, and then further inside of that is the dinghy dock. And I guess on a first come first served basis, you can rent one of those slips. I don't know how available they are. I'd imagine the demand is probably pretty high. And according to the website, you're not allowed to sleep on your boat if you're at the town pier. I don't know if that's enforced. I don't even know how practical it is to get one of those transient slips. But and at the end of that town pier is where the free fresh water is. So that big face dock that faces out into the water is where you can pull up your big boat and load up with fresh water that's available at the town pier. There's also a pump out at the end of the town pier there. And there's also a pump out boat that goes around the harbor, and the boat's name is Headhunter, cleverly. And you can call them on VHF channel 14, and they'll come to your boat, pump out for free. We usually tip the kids on the boat. They're really good. They're very impressive how responsive they are. You see them like driving around the harbor all day long, just like looking for boats to pump out. And yeah, like I said, further towards shore along that town pier is where the dinghy dock is. And the dinghy dock it's pretty big, but it still gets very, very crowded. There's signs there that limit the boat size to 13 feet, except it seems like some boats don't really follow that. And it also says to please keep your outboard engines down, like you should at any dinghy dock. But we noticed that there's quite a few people who leave their engine outboards up. A little frustrating when that happens, but I think it's probably people who just like live on the island or are there once in a while, and they're not really like actively using their dinghy every day or their smaller boat every day. But yeah, the dinghy dock's free, which is awesome, and easy access to town from the dinghy dock. It's like, I don't know, half a mile or whatever. I mean, as soon as you start walking down the road from the dinghy dock, you hit like a coffee shop, and there's a restaurant right there, and then you start getting into town. So really easy to access town from that dinghy dock. More on the moorage. So if you don't want to go to the Nantucket Boat Basin or the town pier, there's a lot of moorings. And I think most cruising boats probably pick up a mooring. And the moorings are pretty expensive for moorings, but I mean, it's just an expensive place in general. I forget what the price is. And they're still in pretty high demand. And you can reserve your mooring. How do you reserve your mooring? It might be through Dockwell, I'm not sure. It might be through Dockwell, or you can at least check out the website. But you can reserve your mooring in advance, and there's a 2-day minimum for moorings. Reservations might be full, and we found this before. So if you try to reserve it, but like Dockwell doesn't let you or something, or whatever site there is, doesn't let you, saying it's full, there may still be some available. So you can show up and you can call the mooring company. I think it's called, Nantucket Moorings. Go to their website or call them on that VHF. I'm not sure what channel it is, but they probably have a free mooring for you still. And yeah, most people pick up the moorings. Now, of course, we don't like to pay, and we like to anchor so that we just kind of save as much money as possible, and we'll deal with some inconveniences to be able to anchor for free. One of them being just being further away from the dinghy dock, or dealing with the changing currents and having to monitor your anchor as the current changes. But you can anchor in Nantucket Harbor outside of the mooring field, but you have to be inside First Point. So that's like a location on the north side of the harbor. It's like a sand spit, or not even really a sand spit. It's just a little point that sticks out from the shoreline on the north side of the harbor. And I should be looking at the camera. So you have to like draw a line south of that First Point, and you can't go beyond that, because the harbor goes really far. It's like 6 miles long, technically, is like Nantucket Harbor. But you can only anchor within like that first mile, and then you got to be outside of the mooring field. And I have seen other boats anchor like deeper in the harbor, like way at head of the harbor, which is all the way on the other side, like to the, I don't know what you call it, the northeast corner, I guess is the other side of the harbor. But I don't know how enforced that no anchoring out there is. I don't know if you're allowed to anchor there like just during the day or whatnot. But I've seen just once or twice, a couple boats anchored there, and they might only be there during the day. And yeah, so you can anchor just outside the mooring field, inside of First Point, and there's a few spots. There's actually a spot you can anchor where if you're coming into the channel from the north, from Nantucket Sound, you're coming into Nantucket Harbor through that big channel, and off your starboard side, so as soon as you get inside the big long jetty, on your starboard side, you'll see like Brant Point, And before Brant Point, so basically in between Brant Point and the jetty, is this kind of cove. It's not a deep cove or anything. It's not like a protected cove, but it's just kind of, the land dips in a little bit. And some people anchor there. You're allowed to anchor there, but it's pretty rolly there. You'll actually see a lot of small boats moored there, so like small sailboats and little Boston Whalers and stuff. But you can anchor there, but it's very rolly because you get all the wakes from the boats going in and out of the channel, in and out of the harbor. So that's one spot. Some of the bigger boats, like bigger yachts even, anchor outside of the harbor, so on the north side of the island, you're kind of in the lee of the prevailing winds, because the prevailing winds are from the southwest. So in calm conditions, you'll see like yachts and stuff anchor out there, and you know smaller boats could anchor out there as well. And most of the time in the summer, it's pretty calm, but you got to watch out for fronts and stuff like that, and you'll still get an occasional roll and whatever. But generally, you're protected from the prevailing winds. So you got the outside, you got inside of Brant Point, and then the most popular spots are, you go deeper in the harbor and just outside the mooring field. So just to the north, or just to the, what direction is that? West of the mooring field, mostly to the north of the mooring field. And there's a huge shallow spot. Let me pull up a map so I have my orientations correct as I'm talking to you guys. But there's a huge shallow spot just outside the mooring field that you gotta watch out for, and it's all well charted, and you can see it on satellite as well. And in our cruising guide, we really pointed out, in our cruising guide video, we pointed out pretty well. But yeah, you come into the harbor, and directly to the south is all the moorings, and then directly to the east of that mooring field is that shallow spot. So like north of that shallow spot is kind of a channel, but you can anchor in there. You can anchor like right on the edge of all this shallow spot. So basically kind of between the shallow spot and the mooring field. And then there's another unmarked channel south and southeast of that shallow spot. And it kind of runs parallel to the shoreline there, and you can see it really well on like satellite view. And you can anchor, and we've anchored, this is our favorite anchoring spot, in that channel. And again, it's not marked, but you can see it on like satellite view and on your charts and stuff like that. And the hardest part about anchoring in any of these spots, and specifically that channel, is the changing currents. So every 6 hours, a pretty good current runs through here. So every 6 hours, you're going to reverse the way you're pointing, and then especially when that wind is against the current, if anyone's anchored in those conditions, you know how annoying that can be. So just changing currents and the wind against currents is kind of the most difficult part. And some boats, especially in the very south of the harbor where you can anchor, you might see them on like a Bahamian mooring where you have two anchors out up to a single point, and that'll kind of, if you're not familiar with the Bahamian mooring, two anchors out, but to your bow still, so the boat still swivels around this single anchor point, but your anchors don't have to reset, because when the current's going one way, all the tension is on one anchor, and then once it switches, all the tension is on the other anchor, so your original anchor doesn't have to reset, and then a lot of times the tension's on both anchors. So you might see boats in the south of the harbor that are on this Bahamian mooring, and if they are, you should notice that, because they're going to have a much shorter swing radius. So if you anchor close to them and you're on a single anchor with a long rode, then you may swing into this boat on the changing current who has a much shorter swing radius, because they're not gonna swing out away from you as that current changes. So hopefully that makes sense for you guys. So some boats anchor Bahamian mooring style. And what else we have around here in Nantucket? Yeah, you can take a boat all the way up to head of the harbor, all the way to the northeast of the harbor. Pretty cool, like lots of little beaches and stuff in there, like little harbor beaches. You can walk across in some spots to get across to the Nantucket Sound shoreline, which is really nice, like pretty empty up there. And if you get all the way to head of the harbor, you can actually access the ocean beach You have to like walk across a spit of land, but you can access the ocean beach up there. And you have to be careful, like if you're in a deep draft boat, especially navigating up to the head of the harbor, because there's a lot of sand spits and shallow areas and stuff like that. But it's well marked. So if you have a decent chart, you're following your chart and you're just looking out for these day markers that are up there. And especially if you have satellite view, then you'd be fine. But there are sand spits and shallow areas. So that's anchoring, mooring, and kind of navigating the harbor a little bit. Also, let me mention, in our favorite anchoring spot, that southeast channel that I was talking about, there is a sunken boat that we actually, there's like a wreck, like a small sailboat wreck, that we actually wrapped a bunch of chain around, our anchor chain, and it was a pain in the butt to get off. So we have that marked in our custom maps that we have. So the link for that will be in the description. We've been keeping track of, we've just been marking our own things like you would see on Navionics or even like Google Maps, like how things are marked and there's notes about them and stuff like that. We've been doing that, but ourselves, and finding our own unique things to note, including like that wreck in particular that wasn't even on Navionics. So we made sure to mark that on our own custom map. And then like on Google Maps, you won't find like dinghy docks or things like that. So you would find that on our custom map that you can download. You can actually even, there's a way to download all the points on our map, and then you can even upload them to Navionics. So we'll have to put out a video or something explaining how you can do that. But at least you can see it on, it's a Google Map type map on your phone or computer or whatever. My voice is getting dry. Okay. Facilities. I talked to you guys about the freshwater and the pump out. So once you get to that dinghy dock, all right. Well, let's go one by one. So diesel, fuel, gas, ice, coin-operated laundry is available at the Nantucket Boat Basin. So even if you're not staying there, you can get diesel or use the laundry. We've done that a couple times. I don't know if you're actually supposed to use laundry, but no one said anything to us. We still used it. It was fine because it's coin-operated. It's not like it's free or anything. But yeah, ice and gas you can get from there. Propane. So they're a half a mile from the town pier, from the dinghy dock, is Marine Home Center, is called. It's like a hardware store. And, excuse me, you can swap out your propane tanks there, like if you have regular barbecue propane tanks. But if they don't refill them there. So if you have, like we had a aluminum propane tank, and if you want to get that refilled, you have to go to, the name of it's called Airport Gas. And it's by the airport, but it's just a regular mobile gas station, like the brand Mobile. And it's about 2.5 miles from the town pier. So I forgot what I did. Used a bike or taxi or something like that. Uber, maybe. And if you go to Airport Gas, I don't know their hours, but they'll refill your propane tanks. Groceries, there's a grocery store like a 1/4 mile from the dinghy dock in towards town. There's a meat and fish market just over a mile to the south of that dinghy dock. So you get some fresh fish and meat from there. There's another Stop and Shop as well in that direction, but the one just a 1/4 mile away is way closer. And then right at the end so you walk from the dinghy dock to the road, and right there on the right on the road, there used to be like a very small marine supply and like tackle store, but when we were there last, which actually was over a year ago now, it looks like they were closing down, and I don't know if anything has replaced that. So I don't know if there's any marine specific store on the island, but there is Nantucket Auto Supply, which is 2.5 miles away, and you can just find that on Google Maps or our map or whatever. There's also a lady named Ellen who does sail and canvas repair, and her business is called Nantucket Sail, Repair, and Canvas. and she's just over 2 miles away from the dinghy dock as well. So if you have a rip sail or canvas or whatever, she could probably help you out, especially if it's just you need a repair just to get out of there to get to more resources like on the mainland or whatever. Man, my voice, I don't talk this much. My voice is getting... So excursions and attractions, I told you guys about scalloping, and shellfishing in general is really good in the harbor because they like pride themselves in having that clean water, and those they're just very environmentally conscious on Nantucket, which is pretty cool, and you see the results of it, like a really healthy shellfish fisheries, including clams, scallops, and oysters. And they have a shellfish hatchery on Brant Point. It's called Brant Point Shellfish Hatchery. So like right at the Brant Point, right when you come into the harbor. So it's right on the harbor. And I think they might do tours there. We've gotten tours because my cousin used to work there, and he's friends, and we know now some of the people who work there. So we've gotten to check out the shellfish hatchery, and I think they might have tours for the public too. So that would be cool if you're interested at all to check that out. And they raise baby shellfish basically, and then they like seed them through the harbor. So that helps keep these populations super healthy. And I know they do a lot more than just that, but that's just one thing they do. They do a lot of, some research and things as well. But in the summer, you're not allowed to get scallops. Like I said, recreational scallop season is only October. I think it's October through March, but it starts October 1st, and commercial guys can't get out till November 1st. So if you're there in October, get your permit from the town and go scalloping. You can snorkel for them or dive for them, scuba if you want, but you only really need to snorkel. And you would have so much fun. Water's cold though. Well, not that cold, but the air is colder, I guess, in October than the water is. But it's definitely not warm. Won't call it warm. But in the summer, you can go clamming, and you still need a permit for clamming as well, so get your permit from the town. But we did a whole bunch of clamming while we were there. There were a ton of clams. And it was super cool. We made, we steamed them, we grilled them, we made clam chowder, we made stuffed clams. So really, really, really good. And even if you don't want to get your own scallops, but you're there through at any point in the winter in Nantucket, you could get, fresh Nantucket-based scallops from the seafood markets or the restaurants or whatever. And guys, they're like the best. They're the best scallops I've ever had. Like take a regular big sea scallop that you might get from the grocery store, and it's like 100 times better. They're smaller, they're sweeter, they're fresher. No fishy smell or taste or anything at all. Just sweet, tender little Nantucket Bay scallops. They're amazing. And alright, so scalloping, clamming, whatever. There's a company called Next Level Water Sports, and we know one of the guys who owns it. Not super well, but know him, have chatted with him. But they do a lot of kiteboard lessons and wing foil lessons on the harbor. So if you guys are there and you're into that kind of stuff, you can hit them up and do a kiteboard lesson or wing foil lesson. They also do like wakeboarding and stuff behind a boat. And one of our other favorite things to do is rent bikes from Nantucket Bike Shop. There's another bike shop as well, but we like Nantucket Bike Shop. And you can bike all around the island. There's like bike paths, and we really like to. There's another small town, I guess you would call it, called Nantucket on the end of the island. So you can bike all the way to Nantucket, and there's a restaurant called Millie's, and a popular thing to do is go to Millie's for sunset and dinner. And it's really, really, really good food. Nice bike ride to and from, all on like this paved bike path. It's just a nice thing to do. Just bike to Millie's, get there before sunset, have some dinner, sunset, and then ride back in the evening. And then something else fun to do. They have a big brewery on Nantucket is Cisco Brewery, and not only do they have beer there, but they have wine, spirits, and a lot of the time, especially during the summer, they have music, especially on weekends too. They have like live music. They have all sorts of like food stands, like little mini food trucks, or like there's guys there shucking oysters, and you get some oysters and just delicious food. Catamaran is just pulling into the marina we're in right now while I'm recording this. And Cisco Brewery is, I don't know how far it is, but it's a few miles. It's a little bit of a hike. You can't really walk there. But they have a free shuttle. So right in town is a place called Nantucket Visitor Center. And you can go there, and this Cisco Brewery shuttle runs back and forth like throughout the whole day and probably into the evening. I'm not sure. I don't know how late they're open. But you can get this free shuttle, and you just tip the guy, whatever. He's got a basket for tips. But he'll take you to and from. And yeah, really, really fun to check out. Usually, especially on weekends in the summer, like a nice weekend, it's packed. It's really crowded. But they have great, I always get the beer. I haven't had the wine or spirits, but really good beer. And they sell Cisco Brewery beer all over the island as well. So that's like their local brewery. So really, really good. Definitely something fun to do on the island. Let's see. That's really it. That's most about Nantucket. They have a small airport on Nantucket, so we had some friends and family come in to visit us, and they have flights. You can actually find some affordable flights from, I think it was from JFK or LaGuardia. Like some of my family lives on Long Island. So some of them took a flight over, and then they have ferries as well. Like I know one spot ferry leaves out of is Hyannis on Massachusetts. So you could take a ferry over, and they have car ferries and pedestrian ferries. So we had friends and family take both plane over and ferries. And I'm trying to think what else. Yeah, it's just a really neat spot. Like our day-to-day stuff was just I would wing foil off the boat. We always anchored, and then we'd go clamming. Like I said before, we'd go take the dinghy up the harbor, pull it up on the harbor beach, and just go for nice long walks with Jetty. And yeah, it can get warm there, but it's New England, so it's like even through the summer, it's like foggy on and off. It can be cool, it can be drizzly, it can be warm. All sorts of weather. And the harbor, when we were there last, was actually, the harbor water was pretty warm, but the surrounding water is pretty cool. Yeah, and we've spent some time in other places in the area, like Edgartown and Vineyard Haven, which are both Martha's Vineyard. But in general, we kind of like Nantucket better. It was just Martha's Vineyard felt bigger and a little, how do you describe it? A little less of like a destination place. Although I wouldn't pass it up. Like Edgartown, I think it was Edgar. Yeah, Edgartown's really cool. Vineyard Haven, just from a boat, I like Edgartown a bit better. And then all the way on the other end of Martha's Vineyard's like Menepsha. And then that whole area, if you go to like the Elizabeth Islands, Hadley Harbor is on one end, like right across from Woods Hole, in that area. Cool little area. Hadley Harbor is beautiful, but probably super crowded in the summer. And then all the way on the other end of the Elizabeth Islands, all the way to the west, there's a small island called Cuttyhunk. So that's one of our favorite islands in that area. Just a really tiny little island. And the rest of the Elizabeth Islands are actually private, so you can't really... There's like one little spot in between you can go to shore. I forget what that's called, but nice little anchorage. But yeah, that whole area is just so beautiful. And then Block Island, we spent a ton of time on Block Island as well. It's kind of funny, like, yeah, just Block Island seems definitely less fancy. There's still some really expensive real estate there and stuff, but I don't know how to describe it. It seemed a little, especially with the visitors there, it just seemed a little more like, I don't want to insult anyone, but like middle class. Like a lot of the tourists on Nantucket are like, they got some bucks. Like the people visiting there have some money. And then Block Island, I guess, you get like just more middle class people who, maybe it's just more affordable. And again, like I'm just generalizing here. So But Block Island's got its own cool things about it. We've been horseback riding. We did a lot of surfing on Block Island. Still some really cool hikes. Really, really nice hikes on Block Island. And they have the glass float project, which we finally found a glass float the last time we were there, which is pretty cool. So, yeah. I guess that's it. Nantucket. So check out the link in the description for our Nantucket cruising guide video. We just started making these guides. Let us know what you think of this video and podcast. Was it informative? Was it interesting? What questions did you have? What I miss? And then if you get a chance to see the cruising guide video, let us know what you guys think about that. Same thing, what you like, what you don't like, what you think I missed or got wrong. And we'll try to do some more of those and just keep improving it. So hopefully they can be good resources for people. So, yeah. And check out our custom map in the description as well. So thanks for listening, you guys. We'll talk to you guys later.